Hello everybody, it's McDonald speaking. Thanks for joining us for this week's dollar index market commentary. Looking here, this is just becoming a really hard chart to read right now. So as you know, I like to see that consistency across time frames, and if for example you haven't watched the index video for the Russell 2000, go and watch that one as well, because you'll see what I'm looking for when I see consistency and agreement across multiple time frames. But let's come and have a look at this here on the dollar index and see, what we don't have and what we're lacking as compared to a market like the Russell right now. So first things first, on the daily chart, it is actually quite bullish. So we've now confirmed that uptrend. We've made this higher low here. We broke it up to high highs. We broke through this high as well. So we are now clearly in an uptrend, and we're pulling back into 80. So we're pulling back into some quite significant support through here. And actually, if we zoomed in a little bit, let's just also draw a Fibonacci line. I'm always looking for kind of 50 to 62% pullbacks into that zone. And you can see here it's just beyond the 61.8% as well for that move up. So it's right in that sweet spot, or just beyond the sweet spot, but right in the zone I'm looking for, just above the 50, just below the 60, or in the middle of the two, combined with moving average zone, which it's in, combined with the supportive resistance level, which is right out of 80. So there's multiple factors here that say this could have a good bounce off 80. It's also in an uptrend on the daily chart. So everything looks good, but then we like to come and check the higher time frames. We come to the weekly chart, and it's still just not that clear. So I was thinking if it broke up through here, it might be starting to show some signs of improvement, and it did on a daily chart. But here it's not really. Now we can look at this now and say this is a higher low. We've had the bullish candle to break up through it. We've continued on, so that is a higher low. But it equally is starting to, the fact that this candle here was so bearish for the week, it's also looking like this could be a lower high versus the previous. So it's not a case of we don't know what the trend is, it's a case of there just is no clear trend. There's no clear momentum, no clear winner there. And actually, after being in this range back through here, we tried to push up, but even then, when we did push up, we had this big move up, big move down, big move up, reasonably big move down. It's really now a case of, do we move up from here, or are we about to roll back over and put in a lower high and break down through these lows? On this time frame, I'm swaying to the downside. However, on the daily chart, there's absolutely no doubt we should be looking at it towards the upside. So let's see if the monthly chart adds any weight to this and actually, lends any weight in either direction. Well, the monthly chart is undoubtedly in a downtrend. However, we're in the middle of a somewhat bullish candle. So last month looked very bearish. We had this candle back here 3 months ago. Then we had this candle here breaking down through the lows. It should have continued down. In fact, what's happened is we've got a bullish candle. However, until we broke up through the high of this candle, then it would still not be confirmed bullish, i.e. there's no sign of this downtrend ending unless we broke up through that high. So even now, even though we've been bullish and now we're selling off again, it is actually still bearish, and actually my longer term view hasn't changed at all. I still think that the dollar index will be coming down and testing 7,400 and below this year. I'm not really saying in the next few months, but it's bearish. I think it will be getting down there this year. My view is only going to change if we start to break up through these highs of 3 months ago. So ultimately, we have a bearish looking monthly, a slightly bearish looking weekly, although it's still indecisive in terms of we haven't got that confirmed bearishness yet. So it's more just I'm swaying my thoughts towards the downside. However, it is unclear as to whether it should go up or down. It's still, probably, it's almost 50-50 right now, because we are in that period of uncertain trend, but it's only the monthly chart which adds some real weight to it, and just this price action, if we now broke down through 80, I'd consider this looked quite bearish to the downside to at least 78. But then coming back to the daily chart again, we do look bullish. So what do we do in this kind of scenario? Well, what do? I am particularly cautious. I don't go in there taking longer term trades, I'm just taking shorter term trades. What kind of short term trades am I looking for? Well, I've just identified a potential long trade off 80 on a daily chart. So what I would then do is I'd come and look at these kind of time frames, so 4-hour and 8-hour charts, and I'd look for any sort of turnaround in the candles. So I'd, for example, zoom in here on an 8-hour chart, come in and look at this, and you can just confirm here just how strong 80 is. And we'll draw a line in there, but just look at all the bounces and the touches of 80, and then we see that we're right there now. We had a big bearish candle, which often happens at the end of a move. Big bearish candle, we've got a little bullish candle there. Any break up through here, any signs of the price turning around, I might start to look for long trades off 80. But equally, we saw that based on the weekly chart, if we didn't bounce off 80 and there was no reason to get long there for a daily or an 8-hour chart trade, but we broke down through it, then the weekly chart would be looking particularly bearish. So then what I would do is I'd be looking, for example, for any pullbacks into 80. So at the moment we've pulled back to it from the upside and it's support, but if we broke below it, then we pull back to it from the downside, then 80 would be acting as resistance. And I would be looking for any, similarly, any setup to the short side, but around 80. I want my entry and stop loss to be around 80 because I want the difference between my entry and stop to include 80, therefore protection for my stop loss, something defending my stop, which is that big level and the major support and resistance level, as well as being this big figure of 80 itself. So it is a strong level. It's the kind of trading that I do in range-bound and uncertain markets. And of course, that's where we are right now, but I'll also be looking for trades as we come up towards 81 if we did rally, and equally trades down at 79. We've discussed many times how it seems to be just these big numbers, or it's very clearly these big numbers that are giving the price support and resistance levels, and therefore that are giving us trading opportunities. So I'm looking for trading opportunities in the shorter term trends. 4-hour charts and 8-hour charts, but even coming down to 1-hour charts and 2-hour charts, looking for trading opportunities on those time frames, making sure there's multiple time frames in agreement, but time frames relevant to the trading opportunity, looking for trades down there, and therefore waiting for these higher time frames to come back in agreement. So just because the daily, weekly, and monthly are not in agreement doesn't mean we can't get a trade with a 1-hour, 2-hour, 4-hour, and 8-hour chart are in agreement. So it just means I'm looking for lower time frame trades and I'm looking for multiple time frame agreement. It's always the highest probability trading, and we'll still just in the meantime be short-term trading off major support and resistance levels, and just watching and waiting to see when these higher time frames come back into agreement as well. Hope that helps everybody. Happy trading. Have a great week. Speak to you next week.